I do want to remind everyone we are recording this session just to make sure that we don't miss any good ideas that come in. Thank you for joining the community and outreach and engagement session. I am Jen Cotting. I am the director of the Environmental Finance Center. I have the good fortune of being able to work with Brandy on a daily basis. We are serving as facilitators for a lot of the work that's going on with the climate action planning. We will hopefully eventually, I don't see him in the room just yet, but we will hopefully eventually have the good fortune of having Sean Bell also joining our facilitation team. He is a recent graduate of Frederick Douglass High School and headed to Towson in the fall, and will be helping me co-facilitate here and there if he's able to join us. There's Sean. Thank you for joining us, Sean. We'll be tagging you in to co-facilitate a little bit here and there throughout the session. And then also we anticipate that Maya Davis with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, who has been very involved in all of the climate action planning activities, as I know a few of our other participants here, including Ginger, have been. She is designated to be our note taker, but since I don't see her here just yet, Sean, I'm wondering if I could ask you to also take some notes as we go along for us. And the only challenge we are going to run into, let's see if I have screen sharing possibilities here, because we won't have our note taker operating our slide deck. So let me go ahead and pull that up for us. Put that into presentation mode. Okay. Oops, put that back into presentation mode. It did not like that. Okay, and let me minimize our group here so that you can see everything on the screen. Okay, so there's our facilitation team. And I apologize, I have minimized the images so that you all can see my screen fully. If somebody is trying to get my attention with a hand raised or a chat, I am probably not going to see it very quickly. So please feel free to unmute your microphone and let me know if you're trying to engage in the conversation. So we are going to go through a little bit of an introduction. We wanted to emphasize, though, of course, that we are here to, we'll share a little information with you about where the county is on on community outreach and engagement. But what's most important to us is to be in listen and absorb mode, and to really be understanding what you are seeing as needs on the ground in the county. And so let's just dive right in. We are a group of 15 at the moment, but I do think that, a group of 17, woo, we're growing by numbers by the moment. Not everyone may get the chance to speak that had hoped to have something to say. So please feel free to use the chat feature to share your thoughts, your ideas. All of that will be captured. And then when we get to the very end of this session, Sean is going to share we'll have a slide with a few other ways to make sure that you are able to engage in this process as it continues forward. Okay, so let's just dive right in.
Jen, Maya's
yes.
here. Do you want to keep going on the slides, or would you like me to pull them up?
That would be great. Let's go ahead and pull up I can stop sharing and you can pull up your slide deck, because that will enable you to be able to take notes. You probably don't want me you probably don't want to be relying on me for that. So as Maya pulls those notes up, we'll just talk briefly about the benefits of having community engagement and outreach as a part of this climate action process. I think the broad recognition that all of us can agree on is that government action alone is not going to solve the kinds of climate challenges that Prince George's County is facing. It's really going to need to be a community-wide approach with residents and businesses and institutions all working together in the same direction. Next slide, please, Maya. And the community outreach and engagement process is really going to allow for a better understanding of the needs of the community, both this part of a community outreach and engagement process, as we hear from all of you, but also moving forward as a hand-in-hand part of the climate action planning process and implementation process. It's going to be really important to hear from the community about what the needs truly are on the ground, particularly as that relates to underserved communities and long overlooked communities who are in need of resources and better protection and uplift. And then being able to communicate the benefits of taking climate actions is going to be really important. Folks are not going to be willing to invest in things that they don't understand the value of. So we really need to be, it needs to be a two-way street, learning from the community and sharing with the community so that they better understand what's going on. Next slide, please. And there's no shortage of good things already going on in the county at this point. There are county-led initiatives, there are actions being taken by municipalities, by homeowners associations, businesses, community organizations, you name it. There's a lot really already going on. The county's had an energy coach that's been helping to advance energy efficiency with communities and residents. There's been energy resilience zones that are looking to uplift neighborhoods that are facing some of the toughest socioeconomic challenges in the county. The Energizing Student Potential is a program that is looking to create energy literate students. The Clean Water Partnership is part of the Clean Watership Partnership's work has been local workforce development and business development centered around green infrastructure, which has so very many benefits to a community beyond just stormwater control. The Sustainable Energy Workforce Training and Career Pathways is a program that's trying to use the energy sector to provide pathways out of poverty for county residents. And the county's accomplished some really impressive things. They are the #1 producer of solar energy in the metropolitan area, and they have the largest municipal composting program on the East Coast. Next slide, please. So with all of these initiatives, change is happening. It's great, and it's great to see that momentum is really headed forward. The Sustainable Energy Program has been a conduit for a great deal of investment in residential and business sector energy activities. Energizing Students program that I just mentioned, the Energy Literacy Program has engaged over 5,600 students so far and going strong. The composting program has been met with great enthusiasm. It's expanding to 3,000 households and hopefully will be countywide in the next 2 to 3 years is the goal. Rooftop solar through cooperatives has really taken off. Next slide, please. But but there's always more work to be done, right? So the Prince George's County Climate Action Commission's been working really hard over the past 6 months to listen to and learn from technical experts, county residents, stakeholders. And so far, 2 actions have been proposed for community outreach and engagement for the climate action planning process. Those are the ones listed here, supporting and engaging the public in regarding the impacts of climate risk, providing direct technical and financial assistance, particularly to vulnerable populations, and then also providing data and information and resources to underserved communities and engaging community members in citizen science so that they are part of developing the data set for their own community, make sure their own voices are heard. And it offers also some transparency as well to how data is being collected and managed and interpreted. Next slide, please. So that was a very brief snapshot of what's going on in the county. Now to the really important part, to hear from you about what you think is going on, what would inform this process, what you want the county to know. Again, I'm going to turn this over to Sean at this point, if you are ready and available, Sean, and he's going to introduce the visualization exercise that we're going to dive into here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Bell, a recent 2021 graduate of Frederick Douglass High School. So at this moment, I'm going to give a little brief statement about how I think the county engagement outreach should be. So I believe that outreach and engagement in Prince George's County would be both the job of the local government and PG residents to participate in. If we all spread the word to our neighbors, friends, and post about the climate action plan on social media, we can get more people involved. As I am 18, many of my peers either don't believe in climate change or don't know how they can help. With the community outreach and engagement, it is imperative that the county officials and residents get on social media and spread the word, since my generation loves being on technology. Going on in the county in regards to climate change excuse me, I got a little paper, so let me just get a little paper real quick. Where was that? We can go on like Instagram Live, Facebook Live, and so on and so forth, and just speak about what's going on in the county in regards to climate change. And today, and not today, but days to come, we can make even YouTube videos to have informative information about the climate action plan in the county, and also, even more make even more videos and about climate and stuff. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. This is my first time speaking in a while.
No problem, Sean. You're doing great.
Yep. But thank you. And would anybody else like to share? Ugh.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. You gave us a good example of what that vision might look like what that vision looks like for you for certain, and some of the elements that other folks might want to be thinking about. Next slide, please, Maya. So I guess the prompt for all of you would be, what would engagement and outreach program look like in Prince George's County? What would get you excited about it? What would get your neighbors, your loved ones, your families, your colleagues excited? What types of engagement would be useful? Who would be involved? How would it be carried out? What would influence your ability and interest in participating, of actually stepping up and being a part of that? So those are some of the elements that we were, maybe ideas that we were kicking around about that would be really helpful to know. But we would welcome either I will do my best to watch for raised hands, or you can unmute your line, or you can enter something in the chat. Do we have anyone who would like to follow Sean in kicking us off? Okay. Is it Shari?
Kari.
Kari. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Kari. Go ahead.
As like a younger person, I'm 15 and going into my sophomore year. I would think that maybe doing more events that are like maybe ice cream socials. I know we're having an event, I think it's tomorrow at the Walker Mill Park for like an end of the summer. So I think incorporating like climate change and things that are important to climate change into events that teens and young adults are obviously going to enjoy regardless would definitely be important. So maybe like how I said, ice cream socials or carnivals, something that is fun but can also be informative in what we're talking about.
Excellent. Thank you, Kari. We appreciate that. Always good to have the input of our youngest folks, who are the next generation of folks who are going to make things happen on the ground. I'm going to call names in the order that I see them. We have Robin Roberts next.
Hey everyone, I'm in the 65 plus zone. And I was just thinking, I know this will cost, but what about commercials, some clever commercials about climate change, or, how to reduce our input, or, something, commercials, because I know not all of us older people go onto social media a lot. Some of us do, I do, because I have a 22-year-old son who does it all the time. But just something to reach out to more than just young people and middle-aged people, but older people as well. And a lot of older people look at the TV. So I was just thinking about commercials, or even radio commercials. Just kind of pique your interest.
Absolutely. Great suggestion. For different parts of our audience, we're going to need to think about different communications vehicles for getting the message to them. Dr. Wilson, you're up next in my view here.
Yeah, I try not to tell too much because I do a lot of stuff in this area. So I like to say, on the communication side, we got to make climate change discussions, make it everyday, make it practical, make it pocketbook. So talk about issues, impact, opportunities for partnerships, and connect climate change to things that are basic to everyone: food, faith, family, health, and jobs. So I call it the two hands of engagement. I missed one finger though on the first hand. Issues, impact, opportunities, benefits and partnerships. The second hand of engagement, connect this climate change or any issue, major science question to food, faith, family, health, and jobs. So I'll say that first. And then, I think actually just last week, we just submitted a climate change mitigation and equity and health proposal to CDC. So a big part of that proposal that we submitted was to engage our social infrastructure in our communities. It's going to be really important. Those respected, trusted entities who are already doing work, in my opinion, on the justice of health front, because climate, for me, climate injustice is environmental injustice. So those groups that are already focused on justice, make that something that even incentivize for them to talk about climate change and making it real. Scaring people in the communities I work in, that's not going to work. They've already been overburdened, already been impacted. How you make them connect to the issues by things that, again, is proximal, that's everyday, that's real world, real life for them. Those things are important. And then part of the sustainability efforts relates to outreach engagement, social infrastructure, engaging fraternity sororities, engaging One Black Men America, One Black Women America, engaging the NAACP chapters, Urban League chapters, engaging youth through YMCAs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H clubs. Again, engage the social infrastructure, the educational infrastructure that's already in communities. And I'll talk too much because I'm long-winded, so I'll just end with this. As part of that climate change grant that we submitted, we talked about having collaborative partnerships with business, industry, communities who most impacted, most at risk, and then having a major focus on engaging in workforce development, social entrepreneurship, and green businesses, because that's what sustainability. If we're going to make sure people really are able to be engaged, there has to be an opportunity structure that comes along with that. So what does it mean to be engaged in the climate economy? What does it mean to be able to be participating in this economy? And so an economic opportunity angle is something that we need to really pursue to build into programmatic sustainability in our efforts to really become have more climate equity. And I'll stop there.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Yes. Who are those trusted voices that we can leverage? We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Leverage the existing trusted voices and the existing social infrastructure and talk about things in a way that matters to the audience, right? Climate might not mean as much to them, but when you break it down to food, faith, family, health, and jobs, you're certainly speaking a more universal language. The next hand that I see up is Jeanette Mitchell.
Yes. Hi. I was thinking along the lines of social media. I know we mentioned some of the more popular ones that like Facebook, Twitter, but one of the ones that's really popular with more middle to older age people is the app called Nextdoor. And I have a lot of connections on Nextdoor. We use Nextdoor to find out what's going on in our communities. And it's very, very, very active. So that's one another tool that we can use, social media tool that we can use as outreach. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so I see a few more hands and I'm going to call on folks. And then after the next three folks that I call on, we're going to shift a little bit to continue this conversation, but with a different focus. The next in my hand up in my field of vision, Stephen Warenberg.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, sir. Please share your thoughts.
I'm glad we made it through the initial trials and tribulations there.
Yes, certainly.
I chair the Environmental Advisory Committee for the City of Bowie, and we had a climate action plan for a little while, and we have run into some interesting problems communicating. I mean, all the things that everybody's mentioned, with the exception of, and I certainly applaud the idea of getting the social infrastructure involved. Sadly, we don't know much about the social infrastructure in the city of Bowie, so we're going to have to find out. But most of our other mechanisms for communicating with residents, and I'll pause here and say, the county has over 900,000 residents and probably 200,000 owned homes. That's a lot of people who are going to have to change their behavior in order for this climate action plan to really make a big difference. And reaching those people we have found to be quite difficult. We have the usual social media things, Instagram and Twitter and web pages and all the other kind of things, and send out alerts and yada yada. But the problem there is that it's all pull. People have to ask to get it, or they have to go to find it. We don't appear to have much in the way of push anymore, since we've essentially lost journalism and newspapers and things of that nature. So how is the county going to communicate with everyone? That would be my question. Feel free to answer. Anybody can answer that.
It's a fair question, and I think it does come back to that idea. There are lots of different audiences that need to be reached, and how to reach those audiences effectively and make sure no one's falling through the cracks is a really important one. And it's certainly something that the county needs to give a great deal of consideration to in building out their communications platform for the climate action plan, both for informing the plan development, but also for engaging communities in its implementation. The next hand I see up, and Maya, perhaps we can go ahead and move to next slide while our next speaker is sharing their thoughts. Susan Mcclutchen, do you want to share your thoughts as we transition over to our next focus? Please go ahead. What did you want to share?
Yes, I'm working and have been since late 2017 against opposing the superconducting magnetic levitation train, and countering with the group. We've got a long journey, and we are countering the climate promises aspects of it, of it's going to be great for greenhouse gas, it's going to be all of these other things, and there are a lot of lies in there. So from my experience with it, we have gone a long trek of finding how to outreach. We have done a lot. Email is not dead. And I know social media and all that, but email is not dead, and it does work a lot. And I have a wide distribution. People have come on, and that really matters too. Plus, I think of late with the hybrid, now moving more into hybrid, the Zoom meetings really help push our movement out further. And then in-person and hybrid, I think will be very good, because a lot of times people can't come to the in-person, but they've been able to join the Zoom meeting. One thing we found is a lot of the barrier is making it real for people. It's fine to say, well, this train is going to be expensive, it's going to be this and that, but you're emphasizing you can't afford it. It's coming right next to your house. It's coming under your house, how close it is to the surface. All of the things that this is real, it matters to you, because as was mentioned before, people are busy. People are not paying attention. But if it's real, it's like right there in your neighborhood, then they start to listen. And we've done things like door hangers, getting out flyers, doing things for different events. And also you need to push that outreach up. That's in the community. But you need to push it up, promoting within the community to push up and for them to reach out, write letters to their delegates, to their senators, to their council people, and get them engaged in the movement itself for whatever climate aspect you're looking at. That has been a big deal. We were able, for the SC Maglev opposition, to put enough pressure to have regular everyday folks write so many letters and bombard all of our elected people, so that it ended up with Van Hollen and others asking the Federal Railroad Administration to extend the comment period, and they doubled it at that request. But that was because of letter writing campaigns, and much of that was done through emails, and we're pushing in social media. So I just thought I would mention that, getting the people engaged to take actions, to speak to let them know they can speak to their elected officials. The elected officials don't just hold it over everybody. You can speak to them, and you can put pressure on your elected officials. And that's, I think, a very important point, that's really what has propelled and is propelling our opposition, our no build choice that we're promoting. So I just thought I would bring that in too, but email's not dead either. Just saying. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Susan. Clearly the power of email is working well for you, and it's certainly something that shouldn't be taken off the table for this as well. So in thinking about, I know several of you have had your hands up for a minute, and you are still in my queue, but I did want to acknowledge that we also want to make sure that we're capturing ideas about outreach and communications challenges, as well as opportunities to leverage. I know we've talked about a few of those before we even got to this slide. The next hand up in my queue is Linda.
Hi, I'm in Mount Rainier, and I just had a couple of quick things that I thought I would share. I'm not really, I don't think I'm much of a climate expert, but since the pandemic in Mount Rainier, there's been a number of different mutual aid programs that have brought the community more out and together. One is the food pantry, neighborhood food pantry, and a couple of other food distribution systems, which means that we have met a lot of people and we plan to continue it. And one of the really cool things, thanks to Sean and the other student that spoke, is that we have students who are getting their community service hours helping with these projects. And some of them have gotten very engaged in thinking about things. And today we just got an email, Susan, program recommendation from one of the high school students who's going to be a junior next year about creating other things besides food where we might share things more. And this area of when people come for the food pantry, when they come for the different things that are handed out and school supplies and things like that, we've actually met a lot more of the Hispanic population in Mount Rainier. And this has always been a big problem in Mount Rainier. As far as I lived there 40 years, the people in the houses have one set of issues and the people in the apartments have another. And now I think we've really starting to reach out a lot better. With the people in the houses, I had a wonderful experience with the folks who have been involved in so much stuff about native plants. I mean, I never even cared about a native plant until fairly recently. But now, you can't go anywhere in Mount Rainier without crashing into them everywhere, and
Right.
they've taken over the lawns. And so I had the Audubon Society came out and did a evaluation of people's homes and suggested ways in which they could use plants to make them better. And I think that when you talk about making it real for people, if somebody comes to your house and they look around your yard and they tell you, you could really do a lot of different things here to decrease flooding or improve shade or whatever, as well as discussing solar, those things, are really helpful. So I think there's some groups like the Audubon Society. I didn't know how they showed up here, but I think they moved to Mount Rainier or something, and that was great. But if there's some other groups like that that are nature oriented that can involve people in their homes, it would work great in Bowie, I would think. This would be a great way to get people engaged in Bowie, but in Mount Rainier, it's worked very well. So I think those are my suggestions. It's been quite exciting, actually. The pandemic got a lot of people engaged in things that they weren't engaged before.
Yes, if nothing else, one of the silver linings is certainly a greater appreciation for green space and what it does for our mental and physical health. Okay, so Maya, what I would like to do is skip to go to the next slide, because I know we're getting short on time and I want to make sure we do have a chance to talk about equity, but I also want to be respectful of the fact that Philip has had his hand up for some time. So Philip, would you like to make a comment as we transition into our discussion of equity? Please go ahead.
Yes, and I live in Tacoma Park, which once was part of Prince George's County, but now is all in Montgomery County. So I'm honored to be here. I just want to draw people's attention to, there's a whole set of community engagement and empowerment tools that have been developed over the past few decades. Some of you may be familiar with household eco teams or low carbon diet or transition streets. We have a group of us in Montgomery County that evaluated about 7 or 8 of these, including in Canada and Australia. The one that's emerged as perhaps the most well-developed is called Cool Block. I'll put a link in the chat for that, and you take a look at what's there. But the initial focus is on getting households on a block by block basis to meet together and do an examination of your footprints and see what you can do to reduce those. So that's basically incentivized by cost saving, but you get to meet and know your neighbors. You get to understand the vulnerabilities on a local level. You can work to collaborate and creative problem solve. So I'm recommending that you take a look at that. There's a lot of evidence, studies of these tools that show their power and effectiveness and the achievement of carbon reduction goals and things like that, but as well as I think creating connections and face-to-face familiarity with the people that you live next to that I think are going to be increasingly important as we go into more severe weather events and the other stresses on our climate. So you have one of the world's foremost experts in helping to organize these on this call right now, Laura Rosenthal. Hope I don't embarrass her by saying that, but she's a tremendous resource for your community.
Thank you, Philip. I appreciate that. So we are, unfortunately, because the technical glitch is running short on time, but I do want to ask the group to share their thoughts either in the chat or through discussion here. How do we make sure that we're doing this equitably? I saw some chatter, and this is a conversation that I have heard in other circles in EFC's work. Email is a very powerful tool. Social media is a very powerful tool, but not everyone has access to those things. And so what sorts of, how do we make sure that the choices we're making, the vehicles, the communications vehicles we're using, how do we make sure we're being inclusive and that no one's getting left behind either in hearing the messaging, but also or experiencing the benefits that come from taking climate action? Do anyone want to share thoughts on that?
So I'll just chime in real quick. Are you talking about the equitable outcomes piece?
Yes, sir.
So I'll try to be quick. I'm immersed in a lot of conversations in the state, but more nationally. So it's good to kind of bring some of this stuff home. I put in the chat earlier. There's some resources out there. Kresge Foundation actually has a climate equity and health program where they're funding these type of projects. I'm actually on their advisory board for that climate equity and health program. So they actually have case studies, case examples to look at how you integrate equity into doing climate mitigation and adaptation work. And one of the recent conversations we just had last week was, if you're going to address climate change and have equity, you have to address racism, because at every step of the fossil fuel continuum, communities of color and low wealth folks too are differentially impacted, whether it be extraction, transport, processing, combustion, and waste. So you have fossil fuels, right? So you have the issues of greenhouse gases and the co-pollutants. Greenhouse gases are important for climate-related perturbations from flooding, sea level rise, etc. But the co-pollutants are the things that are killing folks. And so it shouldn't be a surprise when you look at the intersection of the COVID-19 and who was most impacted. It was the same folks who were vulnerable pre-COVID-19. Okay, so you have to be talking about structural racism in this if you're going to try to address equity. Also, equity in preparedness, response, and recovery. That's important. And then I'm going to stop talking. I know we run out of time. And then equity in the benefits of the climate economy. There's a whole Justice 40 initiative that the White House has. How can we look at that Justice 40 initiative and bring that Justice 40 initiative down to the county level? So I'll stop there because I know we're running low on time.
Excellent suggestions. Thank you. I very much appreciate your chiming in on that. I know you have a wealth of knowledge and experience to share with the group. Maya, since we're running short on time for this particular session, could I ask you to go ahead and jump to the very last slide so we can talk about the other ways that folks can engage in, let's go one more, Maya. I think we're not going to have time to really get into that discussion. Sean, did you have anything you wanted to say about this slide? Or would you like me to?
Yes.
You want to bring us home?
Yep. So here's a very important announcement before we leave the breakout room. If you would like to get more involved with the County Action Plan, you can apply to the County Action Resident Expert Work Group, which is at the top of this page. This group is for both county residents who are both technical experts in climate change and for those who are longstanding residents, even if you do not have a technical expertise. Thank you for your time.